Alright, welcome back. It's super late night right now. It's almost 5 in the morning. And I've been reading through the notes. We are on chapter 7, I think. And steadily making our way through this book at all the craziness that's going on. There's a lot of emotional stuff happening that went on in the last chapter. And ready to get back into this crime story part of it and see what's actually happening. We haven't heard a lot from Jin. We just know that he's kind of turning to the dark side, right? There's a lot of unanswered questions right now. Like, we're not even in the middle of a story. We're at the part where the action should be happening and nothing's really happening. So let's continue on. The name of this chapter is We Can Laugh When We're Together. It is 32 pages long. So for those of you who want to know what you're about to sit through, there you go. Let's go ahead and get started. The first entry, Speak of the Devil, is from Jin, and it is August 2nd, year 22. We're steadily getting closer and closer to that September 30th date that we're suddenly, all of a sudden, just fearing, right? So let's go ahead and get started. Jin's entry, 2nd of August, year 22. When I came back from Jungkook's welcome home party, there was a pile of papers on my desk. A note on them said, "A draft of your father's memoir. You're in it too, so some feedback would be appreciated." The note was from Uncle Jun-ho. My dad's memoir, in the previous loops. This was about the time I got the first draft of it. It would be published mid-September, and I would even attend the celebration party for the publication without having read it. For the first time, I was asked to read it in this loop. It might have been a butterfly effect from having gone to Jungkook's party instead of the meeting. I pushed the draft aside. I was not in the mood to read it. It might anger Dad, but once the loop was in motion again, it was all meaningless. What if, there's some huge confession in there, right? It was all meaningless. Ever since I realized how meaningless it all was, I had become unafraid of Dad. And my relationship with him was also no longer important. I had to focus only on my problems. I turned the pages of the memoir by sheer accident. The wind from the windows blew away the papers, and while I was picking them up from the floor, my eyes landed on something interesting. It was a part where my dad was near the container village next to Songju Station and thinking about the future with me and holding my hand. It said, he wondered if there would be a day when his boy would play soccer with a boy from the container village. Interesting wasn't the right word for it. Nothing in that memoir was interesting, but I wondered whether that really had happened. Was my dad the kind of person? I kept reading, but there was an abrupt change in the story. The part was about me in high school, and he compared it to his days in high school, but there were about 10 pages missing. The fact that the pages were missing wasn't important. 10 pages from a memoir didn't make a dent in the story, and I had no interest in my dad's high school years. I wasn't interested in which 10 pages were missing or what they were about. I flipped to the table of contents, and there I saw the map of the soul. I gasped. I'd never imagined that I would see it in my dad's memoir. It was like getting punched while being completely defenseless. Namjoon telling me I should ask my dad passed through my mind. I knew right away where the missing 10 pages were. They were in the den, the inner room inside the den. After making sure I was home alone, I crept into the den. When I walked in the door, I saw a painting over the desk, the vast sea, raging waves, a precarious wooden raft. People without food or drink, people without compass or hope. Out of hatred, fear, and desire, they killed and sucked the blood of each other as they slowly died. When I was young, I was so afraid of the painting that I stayed away from this place. I thought about why he had this terrible painting there. As time passed, the painting became part of his den and no longer an object of fear or wonder. But I had something else to fear. There was an inner room in the den. There was nothing special about the room. It had no lock. It was just an extension of the den. The only noticeable thing about the room were the books. There were many books. Books and papers he'd collected since high school. It was called the Inner Room. Not because someone named it that, but because it was the most fitting description of the place. Dad spent time there organizing his thoughts or coming up with new plans, and except for him, no one went in there. The exception was his secretary who went in to deliver papers. I'd gone in only once, and even though I was very little then, I knew that place wasn't just a den with books. On the surface, the place looked ordinary, almost human, cluttered with boxes, papers, and books placed or piled up without any order. But there was no casual warmth from the printed papers and no emotions from the paintings or pictures. Just standing there and looking up at the bookshelves, I felt an overbearing pressure that nearly shattered me to pieces. I didn't recall having been scolded for going into the room, but maybe I had been. Since that day, I had never set foot in the place. I stood close to the door, but after glancing up at the books, I turned away, never having the guts to open the door. I did go into the room, however, in my dream. When I got reprimanded by my dad, I dreamt of being trapped in the inner room. Over time, my memories of the room faded, and they were replaced by my dad's face. And one day, I finally realized it. What the room was exuding was the very essence of him. No longer being afraid of him, however, I walked in without a care. The room looked different from the way I remembered it. The desks and papers were far from looking overbearing, nor did the room look like my dad. The missing pages were in an envelope in the middle of the bookshelf. Pages were disappointing. The chapter was titled The Map of the Soul. There was nothing in it about what the title meant. All the chapter had was a couple of episodes from my dad's high school days, but I saw a passage. The passage says, "When I thought about my high school days, I realized the map I'd been looking for wasn't a real map with roads or dead ends, directions, and scales. It was just another name for the life I have lived, the countless hours I have lived since then, and the choices I've made. It'd be the trajectory of all my failures, successes, mistakes, and blunders. But I failed to find the map. In retrospect, I realized that I landed on the right path because of my failures." It's pretty deep. My dad was looking for the map. Given the chapter title, it was the map of the soul that he was looking for, and he said that it'd be trajectory of the failures, successes, mistakes, and blunders of a person. Then, what would be my trajectory? What contained the memories of the days I have lived? Was that what I should be looking for? I remembered then what Tae-young had told me. "You've lost your memories." I ran back to my room, pulled out a box from under the desk, and found a couple of photo books and envelopes with Polaroid pictures. I turned the first envelope upside down and picked up the pictures. A picture I took at a beach in the United States when I was young, Polaroid pictures of my childhood, and one where I looked awkward at a restaurant somewhere with Mom and Dad. Pictures with my friends were in the third envelope. After thumbing through the pictures with me in my school uniform, I picked up one picture, the one in which Hoseok and Jimin were dancing in the classroom turned storage room. Something was reflected on the window, and when I looked closer, it was my face, and I was beaming. Had I ever smiled so big, not to mention smiling at someone? I picked up one picture after another. In the classroom, at the beach, on the streets, I was goofing around, shoving or tugging on someone. In one picture, Hoseok and Jimin had whipped cream smeared on their faces, and in another one, Yoongi was playing piano with Jungkook sitting next to him. Namjoon was posing by the window. Taehyung chuckling right in front of the camera, and all of it was recorded in the picture. Did all this really happen? And when I tried to remember, the headache came back. I didn't know, but I closed my eyes tight, and the memories I was about to bring back instantly dissipated. I realized this had repeated over and over again, and when I tried to remember, the heartache came back. I stood up and looked down at the pile of pictures. I gritted my teeth and focused. Fighting against the pain, I tried to remember. Only when I am able to overcome this pain will I be able to find the trajectory of my life and arrive at the map of the soul. Had it really happened? Nothing of it remained with me. Wide-eyed, I looked at the pictures, and I thought about my high school days. The old classroom turned storage room, the dust and smell of mildew. It felt wet all the time. Yoongi played the piano and someone laughed. With my eyes closed, I held my fist tight. The pain was beyond bearable. I felt as if all the blood veins in my head would explode. The blood would trickle down, making everything crimson in my eyes, and the blood and the burning sensation would seep into every corner of my head. I buckled. If I could get rid of this pain, I wouldn't care an iota about the memories, or care about finding the map of the soul. In fetal position on the floor, I waited for the pain to subside, and it did very slowly. The tensed up muscles loosened and sagged. I was covered with sweat. There was no energy left in me to try anything. I wanted to give up right there and then. My phone rang a while after that. Without even looking at the screen, I touched it and it started to play music. Piano music. Feeling vacant, I was listening to the music when my eyes landed on a picture. Without getting up, I brought the picture closer to my eyes. In it, Yoongi was playing the piano. Hoseok and Jungkook were goofing around. Namjoon was saying something and Taehyung held a V with his hand over Yoongi's head. Jimin gestured for me to come into the frame. Only then did I remember the song was what Yoongi used to play in the classroom. How was it that I hadn't forgotten? It seemed odd. Are you going to forget me soon, Jimin too? And Jungkook and Namjoon? Do you know who you are? I remembered Taehyung pleading with me. So like, when Jimin's on the bed in some of the videos and he's like curled up in a ball, that's supposed to be resemblant of him trying to remember. Huh. Juicy writing. Okay. Yoongi, August 2nd, year 22. After sending Seokjin a music file, I lay down again. While thumbing through the music scores I'd brought from the classroom, I saw a sentence written in the margin. We can laugh when we're together. It didn't look like my handwriting. I remember one foggy day, happened to be walking around the school playground with Jin. We both felt awkward. With my hands in my pockets fixed on the ground, I intentionally walked slower than usual. I hoped that he would go ahead without me, but he hadn't. Every time I tried talking to him, it made it more awkward between us. He chuckled out of embarrassment. I ended up asking him, when was the last time you really laughed from your heart? He didn't answer, and I didn't ask him again. I had no intention of putting him on the spot, and the question had just popped out of my mouth. We can laugh when we're together. This might be the answer to that question, but I wasn't sure if Seokjin had written this. A certainty I didn't need to have. The melody on the score was pretty lame. I had written it only 2 years ago, but my music back then was unripe and destructive. The notes didn't connect smoothly, nor did the sound beautiful. When I thought about my high school days, I only remembered going around drunk. But I hadn't spent every day like that. I spent the whole night rewriting the score and finished it this morning. I changed the connecting parts between the melodies with a more polished bass, but left the destructiveness as it was. The same with a sense of aggression and irascibility? That was how we'd been, aggressive and irascible. I named the piece, We Can Laugh When We're Together. Okay, we gotta look it up, right? We can't let that slide. This is how you learn new words. Having or showing a tendency to be easily angered. Aggressive and easily angry? So rebellious. Taehyung, 2nd of August, year 22. I woke up startled. I felt chilled with my heart pounding. What had got me all riled up? I looked around, but nothing had changed in Makrion Apartments 401, my dirty old shack. I thought I'd take it easy for a bit, but ended up dozing off. What time was it? How long had I been laying in the sunlight coming in through the window? When I stood up, my back was drenched with sweat. I gulped down a cup of water. I felt better as the lukewarm water went down through my system. I looked at my phone. I had a new text from Jin. It came with a couple of pictures from our high school days. Yoongi sitting by the piano with Jungkook, Hoseok and Jimin with whipped cream on their faces, Namjoon reading a book by the window, and me laughing my head off in the front of the camera. And below the pictures it said, did this really happen? I expanded the pictures. Had they really happened? I remembered them as clear as day. None of us would have forgotten them. Not because those moments in the pictures were special back at school. We had had too many of those days even to count. Every day was like the day in the pictures. It wasn't a matter of remembering them or not. I thought about what Jin meant. After Jungkook's messed up party was over, I had left a text in our chat room. Seokjin, if you ever need us, just let us know. Namjoon asked me later, do you think he will? I said, I want to believe in him. Because believing something, which is hard to believe, is really believing. The text Seokjin had sent, asking whether the pictures had really happened, was his answer to my text. He had begun to trust me. He took the first step to admitting that he was losing his memories and needed help. And I knew exactly what to do. I'd said I wanted to help him, but I had no plans and didn't know what I could do. But Seokjin gave me the answer. Had to bring back the spaces, the times, and emotions in the pictures. We had to go to Namjoon's container, the railway by Songju Station, the shore, and the school. I clicked on our chat room. It was time for us to meet. Stuff's starting to click. Stuff's starting to click. It might be coming together. Come together. Okay. Same day, Jimin's entry, April 2nd, year 22. Where is everyone? I got the text from Taehyung in our chat room while I was in class at Hagwon. I put down my pen and held the phone with both hands. The text was read by everyone, in no time. Maybe we had all been waiting for this moment. Soon, Seokjin will reach out to us. When he does, I'll text everyone for all of us to meet. When Taehyung had sent us this text, I half believed and half doubted. I wondered if that day would ever come. But I nodded, hoping it would. We all did. It wasn't really a promise, it was what we hoped for. I was sure it was the same for Taehyung. I packed my backpack and left. Some looked at me puzzled. As I was leaving my Hagwon, my phone kept pinging with incoming text messages. Taehyung said he was going to meet up with Seokjin at the closed-down swimming pool, and he would swing by Namjoon's container in Songju Station and head out to school. He wanted to go to the beach, but that would take too long. Namjoon said he'd join us at the container. Hoseok said he'd be late and meet us at Songju Station. The text indicated that one person hadn't read it yet. I wrote in haste, "I will go get Yoongi." I turned at the corner. If someone hadn't read the text yet, it had to be Yoongi. I felt a breeze blowing from somewhere. I quickened my steps. I felt I should hurry. I ran up the stairs. "Yoongi!" I knocked. Hearing the music coming from his room, the door was open. Sitting on the sofa, Yoongi stared at me, wondering why I was there when I should be in Hagwon. Same day, 2nd of August, J-Hope's entry. I realized it as soon as I saw Taehyung's text. It was time to go back. I left Songju in a fit of anger a couple of days ago. There were many reasons for my anger: my aunt being sick, the redevelopment plan and the orphanage, and my injured ankle. However, I had no clear target for my rage. To be truthful, I was mad at my helplessness. But I had vented all my anger on Seokjin. While helping out my friend and his dance team, I mulled over this and that. There's something wrong with Seokjin, Taehyung had said, but I didn't really pay attention. Seokjin was rich, and he was the son of an assemblyman, a college student, and drove his own car. My problems were much more serious and important compared to his. I got mad at him for not helping me, but I never helped him. When I told my friend that I had to go back to Songju fast, he seemed at a loss. When I said I was sorry, he shrugged and said, "You seem like you were ready to go back any day." I said that wasn't true and added, "You know how hard I've worked here even with my bad leg. How can you say that?" He smiled and said, "You know that's not what I mean. You should go back. We will take of things here." I clicked on the chat room and said it'd be great if we could meet at Songju Station. I could just make it to the train in time. I started running toward Hagak Station. Taehyung's entry, same day, August 2nd, year 22. Seokjin still looked stone-faced. He didn't say a word and wasn't in the mood to be chummy, but he was focused on remembering things. He seemed to be suffering from a headache and rubbed his temples or massaged the back of his neck from time to time. He grimaced, trying to bear the headache. First time we were here, when I sat in front of Namjoon's container, Seokjin looked at it half believing and half not whether it had really happened. Meanwhile, Namjoon arrived. We walked alongside the railway. We used to hang out here a lot and got chased away by the station workers. Yoongi and Jimin came from the other direction. I fell while running away, and I still have a scar, said Jimin as he showed him his left shin. When we got to Songju Station, we looked up at the ticket prices, Namjoon said. When we went to the beach, we walked forever with the sun beating down on us, looking for a wish-granting boulder, only to find out that it had been blown up to pieces. We still made a wish by the beach. Do you remember what you wished for? Seokjin didn't say anything. I can't remember what I wished for, said Namjoon as he stretched the back of his head. We met up with Hoseok too after we left the station and were heading to school. Sorry, the train got delayed. To catch up with us, he ran even with crutches. When we turned the corner, we saw our school. Seokjin stared at it as if he were looking at it for the first time in his life. Jungkook's entry, same day, August 2nd, year 22. My phone rang. It was Taehyung. He said Seokjin texted and we should all meet at our classroom. I put down the phone face down on the desk and picked up the pen again. I was in an after-school study class. Everyone was quietly working on their workbooks. I had come to school thinking the school would be better than my stifling home. But it was boring here as well. I had my own problems to work out though. What had happened that day? Was it really Seokjin? Did everyone know it? What I thought to be completely preposterous suspicions were becoming real. The dent on Suk-jin's car bumper and the lies my friends told me. Thinking about these in my head, I blackened a notebook page with a pen. What's wrong with them? Who cares? Just don't talk to them. I heard the other kids whispering. It had bothered me at first, but soon I became immune to it and didn't care. When I happened to turn my eyes to the window, I saw my friends coming past the gate. They were dark silhouettes, but I knew right away. Namjoon was in front, followed by Jimin, Taehyung, Yoongi, and Suk-jin. They knew what kind of person Suk-jin was, but they lied to me and were in it together. I pressed my pen to the notebook. The page became so black that there were no spots of white anywhere. So, like, Jungkook thinks the world's against him because, like, I don't know. Like, he thinks there's some big conspiracy going on. Like, what? Okay, finally it all stirred the next day. Jin writes, "We opened the door to the classroom turned storage room and walked in. It was a summer day and the air in the classroom, still hot from the afternoon sun, was mixed with dust and the smell of mildew. Suddenly memories flooded back, the principal's shiny shoes, the expression on Namjoon's face as he stood outside the classroom, and how I ignored Hosuk on the day before our vacation and left the school hurriedly. The throbbing headache came back and I shuddered, feeling chilled. Complicated emotions, which I couldn't describe as either frustration or fear, overwhelmed me. While I visited the places in the pictures with Taehyung, I struggled the whole time with the headache. I had suffered from a headache during the entire time loop. When I was reminded of something, a headache came first. It was clear physical and mental signal, don't remember anything. When I walked to the middle of the classroom, the headache became worse. It was as if the cells in my brain were being shredded to pieces. Things became blurred, and there was a ringing in my ears. I had to get out. Taehyung must have noticed. He grabbed my arm and said, "Try a little harder. Try to remember what happened here." I pushed his hand away and turned around. The pain was unbearable. I was about to scream. Everyone looked at me, not knowing what to say. Remember, what Taehyung said was meaningless to me. That I'd done things, those things had happened to me, and the stories of us doing things together. I think we did, it seems we did, but remembering is not understanding or accepting. Experiencing is not grasping something by hearing about things. Experiences should be rooted deeply in one's heart, mind, and soul, but everything I remembered was terrible. Things that tormented me, and that I wanted to run away from. When I headed to the door, Taehyung blocked me. "Step aside," I said, but Taehyung wouldn't budge. I shoved his shoulder and he pushed me deeper into the classroom. In no time we got into a physical fight, but we were both exhausted. Throwing a punch and blocking it felt heavy and slow, as if we were fighting inside a hot, glutinous liquid. Glutinous, I guess. Liquid. Hot, sugary liquid. My leg became entangled with Taehyung's. I thought we would crash into the wall as I lost my balance and reeled. I didn't know what happened next because of the thick dust. I couldn't open my eyes or breathe. I coughed nonstop. "Are you okay?" Hearing that, I realized I'd kneeled over. I got up and saw that the seemingly solid wall had crumbled down. There was a space. Beyond the crumbled wall, no one moved. "What? We spent so much time here but never knew." Someone whispered. We had never imagined something would be hidden beyond that wall. "What is that?" When the dust settled, we saw a cabinet. Namjoon opened it. I stepped closer. There was a notebook inside the cabinet. Namjoon grabbed it and opened the cover page. I gasped. There was an unexpected name on the first page of the old notebook. Kim Chong-jun. My dad. When Namjoon was about to turn the next page, I whisked it from his hands. Namjoon was surprised, but I didn't care. I turned the pages. The pages in the old notebook turned as if they would crumble into dust. Written in my dad's handwriting, the notebook was his diary of the things he and his friends had done back in high school. It wasn't a record of their daily life. Sometimes it skipped a month, and there were pages too smudged with what looked like blood to be legible. I turned one page at a time. The story stopped and continued again, but I couldn't believe what I was reading. I stopped and recalled my dad's face. Had this really happened to my dad too? Did all this really happen? According to the notebook, my dad had gone through what was happening to me. Like me, he had made mistakes and blundered, and he tried to undo them over and over again, but he failed. The notebook was the record of his failures. After making the deal to save his friends, he was in time loops. He tried to find the map of the soul, but he failed and gave up. He forgot about it and went into denial and betrayed his friends. On the last page, there was nothing but a huge blot of ink. I couldn't tell what had happened, but the next page was also smeared with ink blot, and the next, until the very last page of the notebook, as if to demonstrate my dad's failures. I looked around me. I had no idea how much time had passed, and all my senses were dull. The breeze through the window felt cool, seeing as it was the darkest hour of the day, right before the sun rose. Namjoon and my other friends were asleep here and there. I looked up at the wall. I remembered seeing my dad's name around here, and below it, it said everything started from here. When I was about to close the notebook, I felt a sense of electric current in my fingertips. I could vaguely make out the letters under the ink blot on the pages. I saw the hazy drawn outside the window. The sun would be up soon, but that didn't mean that the night had come to its end. It was the time which was neither night nor morning. Under the light intertwined with the darkness, the letters between the lines smudged with ink became faintly legible. The notebook recorded more than just memories. On the letters and the spaces in between were the records of what my dad forgot and decided to forget. The colors of the letters vanished, but like their remaining imprints, the countless hours of my dad had experienced, the terrors, the unsurmountable despair, and the faint hope must have whirled around under his fingers as he wrote down each letter. The deflected map of my dad's soul was captured in the notebook. I closed the notebook with my eyes moist. I stayed still for a long time while I lifted my head up. My friends were still asleep, and I looked at them one at a time. Perhaps it was inevitable that we return to this place. Everything about us began here. I realized the meaning of being together and the joy of laughing together. Here remains, like a gasping wound, my first mistake, my first terror that I could never admit with my own lips. Everything up to now couldn't have been coincidence. It was inevitable that I'd arrive here. Only then could I discover my errors and mistakes, and the meaning of the pain and anguish they caused, and finally take the first step in the search for the map of my soul. Deep. Okay. A little bit of a bomb there. Taehyung's entry of August 3rd, same day, year 22. I woke up with the sun in my eyes. I couldn't remember when I dozed off. Everyone else was also asleep except for Seokjin standing in the middle of a swirling light. The light seemed to be extruding from the notebook in his hands, a light that was cold, white, and pure. It whirled around him. It was a light, but also an emotion. He looked at each layer of light. He was trying to feel something, not to give up something, but to grab something with his hands. Seeing that, my eyes welled up for no reason. The swirling light slowly settled down and disappeared. The classroom sunk into darkness. Seokjin stayed as he was and looked at us. I glanced at him. Something about him seemed to have changed. Maybe not yet. He saw me and said, "I have to get going now." I nodded. I watched him walking out the door. He knew what he had to do, and he was on his way to do it. Jungkook's entry, August 3rd, same day. I woke up to find my friends asleep. Namjoon was asleep with his backpack on, and Yoongi and Hoseok were asleep, sitting against the wall with their heads together. Jimin was asleep on 2 desks put together. When Taehyung opened the curtain, the classroom filled with the sunlight. I covered my eyes with my hands and said, "Close the curtain, will you?" And they woke up one by one. "Where's Seokjin?" someone asked. Taehyung said he left. I glanced out the window. The school playground was empty. We said goodbye at the gate. I watched as they headed their own way, and I went to the PC room, the one I frequent these days, with the headset on. I would cut myself off from the world in a dark room and focus only on the computer screen, which eased my frustration. I felt better in a dark and isolated place. I hated a bright place with lots of light. In a space that was just my own, I could face reality and plan my revenge. PC room was just the place. I just started coming to this PC room after I paid a visit to the place. It was on a sheer impulse that I got on the bus to the place, but I knew I had to go back there to understand for myself the meaning of what had taken place there. As I watched the scenery out the bus window, I asked myself, can I trust my friends? When I got off the bus, the sky had darkened. I walked slowly to the place of my accident. Like the last time, the road was empty, with no traffic, a surveillance camera installed at a distance. I stood at the spot of the accident. I looked down at the road and recalled that night. The huge moon in the night sky, the world turned upside down, and the headlights coming at me in the upside down world. And the shape of the car as it simply passed by me and the familiar sound of the engine. I sprawled down on the asphalt like on the night of the accident. My face was upturned at the sky, but I couldn't see the moon. If a car were to come my way without seeing me on the road, I would get into another accident. While thinking that, I felt the faint vibration of an engine from the road. Is a car coming? I was going to lift my head up, but I couldn't move. The road vibrated more, and I was sure a car was coming. With the ringing in my ears, my nerves were on edge. I was alert, but I couldn't move or scream. Soon the bright lights were zooming down on me. It was a car, and it was in front of my eyes in no time. My whole body froze, and I couldn't even close my eyes. Crash. It sounded as if the world were split in two, and then came the pain. Help me, I screamed inside, but it didn't come out of my lips. I couldn't swallow or open my eyes. Because of the headlights in my eyes, everything was too bright. Alternating between pain and fear, I couldn't breathe. Something hot and sticky seeped out of my body. It hurt so much that I felt I'd drop dead any minute, with the pain lingering without bringing death. My consciousness scattered, too brutally slow, and the pain would not let up. Finally, the brightness subsided and everything became dark. I couldn't hear or see anything. The fear and pain were gone too. I felt restful. I wondered when was the last time I had felt this comfortable. I just wanted to stay here. This felt like the place I should be. I went limp and trusted my body to the darkness, the complete darkness and silence. A space that was colorless, odorless, and impeccable. This must be death. Finally, this was the end. Everything would come to an end. Something fell onto my eyes, as if a current had sparked in my head. I had a headache. My eyes were closed, but I knew I was being buried. Suck Jim was looking down and throwing a handful of dirt on me. My other friends were with him. More dirt poured down on me. My body, face, and eyes were covered with earth. Help me, I screamed, but I failed to utter it out loud again. I wailed. I struggled to stand up. With dirt in my mouth, I couldn't breathe. When I tried to spit it out, more got into my mouth. I let out a loud cough, opened my eyes. I was still on the road. My friends weren't there, and there was no dirt. I hadn't gotten hit by a car or hurt in any way. I was drenched in sweat and trembling with cold. I felt chilled to my bones, dripping buckets of sweat. My whole body felt stiff and achy. When I lifted my head, I saw the world turned upside down, just like that night. The road was above me, and the night sky was below me. The huge car that had run over me, the solid pain, the screams, despair, and fear. Things I saw and felt that night pierced through my heart. What should I trust? What I had seen just now? Was it the truth of that night? Or was it just a false illusion? As I was getting up, someone said, "What is the problem? Believe what you see." I thought of my friends. They looked at me with an undecipherable expression. It changed into a horrible expression and they sneered, as if they were enjoying a secret that they kept from me. Like a fool, I was the only one being duped. Kill him! Why aren't you killing him?" I snapped out of it, hearing someone yelling. The monitor had a shooting game on it. From the headset, someone on my team was yelling because of an enemy had showed up. Shoot now! I grabbed the mouse and started shooting at the enemy like crazy. The character was knocked down dead like an inflatable toy with its air pumped out. With my mouse, I roamed the game map. The railway ran in the middle of it. There were containers along the railway, just like the container village by Songju Station. Where is he? Kill him! Kill that guy too, hurry up! Press the keyboard to pick up the different weapon, a machine gun. When I did, an enemy with a black bandana appeared at a distance. As I was aiming at him, I felt as if I knew the guy, and I got him with one shot. Then I aimed and shot the other enemies, Park Jimin, Chung Ho Suk. I had no idea why their names dropped out of my mouth. I sneered. Come to think of it, those guys on the screen looked like them. No, those guys were them. I shot down one enemy, one friend at a time. As soon as I saw Namjoon crawling out of his container, I shot him down, and I fired at Taehyung's head as he was running along the railway. I glanced down at him without any feelings. but someone from a distance shot me in the shoulder, and when I changed the view with my mouse, I saw Seokjin with the gun. Immediately, I was boiling up with hostility. I hid behind a wooden crate. From the headset, I heard a team member say, "I'll take him down. Cut him off." "No, I will do it." I stood up and aimed at Seokjin. He killed over to the right. Yoongi jumped out behind him and ran toward me. I had no bullets left. Stone-faced, Yoongi pulled the trigger. I jumped to the side, but got hit twice. My life gauge took a serious dip, and the monitor changed to red. I threw away the machine gun and pulled out a revolver and killed Yoongi with one shot to his head. I fell limp and dead on the ground. Win showed up on the monitor. Team member roared on the headset and said, "Fantastic, you're really good." And that is the end of that chapter. I feel like we went through a lot in that chapter. Like, it's just all over the place. Think about this. They finally go back to the school. They decide to all get back together and go back to the school. Jin needs to go back to these places in order to get his memories, right? Because he's forgetting things in the fact of his failures. So his failures are keeping him from following his map of the soul. He's dwelling too much on his failures, right? You can't go through life and not make mistakes. Everyone does, right? But if you dwell too hard on those mistakes, there's no way you can succeed in enjoying the other things in life. I think that's the message there. And then to see, like, mentally the things that happened with him finding the cabinet, opening the book, like we did in the BU trailer. That was pretty cool. Something's up with Jungkook. Something's up with Jungkook. He's going down a dark path because he thinks everyone's out to get him. And you can see the rage coming out. So, but I really enjoyed that chapter, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it too. I'm going to go ahead and call it for the day. But when you see this, you can just hop to the next video. But I hope you enjoyed everything. I'm getting out of here. I'll see you on the next chapter, you guys.